of all the things that you could do with your background and your education, you're still plugged into farming. Why is that? What draws you to farming and ranching in this world that
It's
you're
my
in?
roots and it's my passion. It's going to be my forever. Can't imagine any other life that's not focused on agriculture and how it's moving forward into the future and what it does for the world and how it impacts the people who benefit from it, but also the people who are in it every day. It's it's my way of life. And I'm really proud of it, and it's ingrained into me. It's in my blood.
So, what it does for the world, what do you mean by that?
Feeding the people, and we still have a lot of work to do with an ever-growing population. Is just going to keep going and going, and people are working so hard to find ways that we can make food better and more efficient to get more food out there for the world.
So, like, what kind of stuff? What are you seeing in the farming community?
Well, there's a lot of, from what I see, there's lots of smaller farms, which is sad, but there's also a need always to be growing and moving forward and having to keep up with the times. And the whole business climate really plays into farming and ranching, and that needs to be a huge focus that some people don't see. Sometimes it's just looked at as farming or ranching and not looked like as a business.
Hmm.
So there's ups and downs, but my belief is there's a place for everything in the world because they support all different avenues of consumers. There's a place for big, a place for small, place for conventional, place for organic, and so on. I think everyone just works well together, and all of them are solutions. And it's great that some people can have choices, and it's great that we can do it in other ways that are cheaper for those who might not have any choices.
So, from what I understand about what you do right now, you're like an advocate in a lot of different senses, right? Talk about you have multiple roles around the farming community.
Yeah, and so my when I got out of college, I know before I go back to the family ranch someday, I really just wanted to focus on advocacy, and I found the fair industry was a great way to do that because you're not only educating the next young agriculturalists of tomorrow, but you're getting to connect with consumers that come to your fair that are of an urban or suburban population, or just maybe not on a farm or ranch.
Hmm.
And so their only interaction they get with agriculture or like livestock is at a fair. That could be the only place all year round that they get that. And so I've created my 6 years in this profession, just created an even bigger passion for looking at those two avenues of education and working towards that. But in a broader reach, like I help out and still have hands-on stuff for other people's operations right now, and just as a hobby for me. But obviously, I'm not at my family's ranch, and so that fills my time. And so in the meantime, I'm working in industry associations so that I can help protect that way of life, so that when I'm ready to take that over, or the next generation ready to pass that down to, I want it to still be there. So I've involved myself in different ag associations across the state, and still back home in the state of California as
Mm.
well. I try to keep tied in there too.
That's
So
a really like forward view. Like
yeah,
you're thinking about long term
right,
there.
exactly. It is. And that's how a lot of actually farmers and ranchers think. I feel to them, they're so proud and have so much attachment to their operation because it's not only their lifestyle, but they do want to leave behind a legacy, and they do want the next generation, they want to see it continue. And that's a big thing, and sometimes that also this industry is failing at is doing proper planning to make sure that those steps can take place, but they still care about it. And yeah, that's no different for me. And so my involvement in industry associations to be a voice and work alongside people that want to protect this way of life and how we operate so that we can feed the growing
Mm.
population and continue to do so in the best way possible. That it means a lot right now during my time not in production agriculture.
So your main job is working with the fair. What's the what's the name of your, like, what's your job title? And
Yeah.
it's the Kittitas Valley,
Yes.
what, Fair and Events Center? Like, what's the,
Yeah, so the grounds is now called the Kittitas Valley Event Center. Went through a rebrand a few years ago because we host events all year round, ag based and not, and just community based. So this fairgrounds is widely used, and so it keeps us very busy. But our main love and biggest event of the year, of course, is the Kittitas County Fair and Ellensburg Rodeo. So I have a really fun time working with both the fair board and the rodeo board to put on those events, because the rodeo, just like the fair, is also an agricultural education type based event in my mind. And so, it's not just entertainment. People learn about livestock going and watching the rodeo, and they get that interaction and understand that lifestyle. So, it's fun to be working with those events simultaneously as they're going on every Labor Day weekend. But yeah, I keep busy. My title is the event center director, but yes, that falls under facility management and the event side of things, the interim and fair manager. So
does it feel like farming sometimes, or does it just feel like an office job sometimes? I guess probably both, right?
probably both. A lot more office than I'd like sometimes.
Yeah.
In previous jobs before I got this position a year and a half ago, I was the agriculture department manager for the Central Washington State Fair. And even though I was still doing a lot of office work, I was just submerged in the ag sector only, which was a ton of fun. And for my first career job, that was right where I wanted to be, right in my passion. And of course, now being at a little higher level of position, I have to encompass everything of the day to day business. But, I think it could be transferred over to farming and ranching still, because a lot of farmers and ranchers, they love working in the business and doing the farm and ranch work. But sometimes the paperwork isn't as much desired, but it's still very necessary
Yeah.
to be able to be successful. And so, it's probably prepping me to make sure that I can keep the office work going and not slack off on it.
So, what does it take to make the Kittitas Valley? Making sure I'm getting this name right. Kittitas Valley
Event
Fair.
center.
Well, but
Yeah.
but the actual big event, Labor Day, and which is like the biggest annual event in this whole area,
Yes.
right?
Kittitas County Fair.
Fair and rodeo.
Mm-hmm.
What all goes into that? I mean, you're working on that all year to make that happen on Labor Day.
All year round, both boards meet, and I meet with both of them. And the planning, the capital, what projects we're going to do to better the fairgrounds in preparation, what changes we want to see, getting all of winter and spring is getting all of the papers renewed for the next year, and all of the new information and planning goes into place. And then late spring, summer, we're working on getting those things ready around all of the events that we're trying to host and manage at the same time. But it does. You just gotta pace yourself throughout the year and make the juggle to make this place profitable and keep it rolling, make it valuable year round.
What's the event like when it actually happens?
Awesome.
Like what all? There's rodeo stuff happening. There's animal exhibits. I would imagine there's the classic like carnival stuff going on.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
describe what
Vendor
Fair
row.
Week looks
Yeah.
like.
It's this fairgrounds for one is beautiful, and we're in a great spot in Ellensburg. And so how the layout is just really fits. And you can, like, when you're walking through the fair side, you can just hear everything going on in the big rodeo arena. And you're almost just itching to get in there and get a ticket to go watch, because it's such a good production that the Ellensburg Rodeo puts on. And then on the fair side, you just feel so comfortable, and there's so much community, and between walking from vendor row and through the carnival and then down to the fair food, the booths are just lined up, easy access. And the animal barns, they're historic, and so they have a good feel going around them. But then getting to go into the big pavilion and see all the kids show every year, and we have several show rings going at once, all around. And so it's you can feel the competition going. Like the kid, it's on their face, and you walk in, you're like, whoa, okay, you can feel it in the air.
That's
It's
awesome.
pretty awesome. Yeah.
I think in this bizarre year of COVID, that's one of those things I'm going to miss the most. I'm such a junkie for fair food. Now that
Yeah.
you mention that, I'm thinking about it, just thinking about deep fried anything and how
Anything. Yes.
wonderful it is.
Um,
But fair food and fair, how fairs are connected to the production of food, two totally different things. And I think people don't think about that part of it, about
yeah.
how producing food, farming,
Hmm.
stewarding the land, how that's all connected to fairs that happen every year. I think, again, people think of, deep fried stuff and rodeos and carnivals,
Right.
but I think a lot of people forget kind of the roots
Exactly.
of the whole fair scene.
And I think this year with COVID has made people realize what the roots of all fairs are truly, and that's the agricultural exhibits and the livestock. This has definitely been a year, while it's very challenging for our youth in 4 H and FFA and other livestock exhibitors, it's also a huge learning year because it's so practical to the daily that other farmers and ranchers and production agriculture have to go through, market ups and downs and not being able to sell an animal maybe. And, luckily a lot of people are working on the virtual options so that the kids can still sell their animals and as a product, and the communities are being super supportive all across the nation, which is amazing to see,
Yeah.
especially because so many of those are small businesses that have also been so hurt from COVID. People are just amazing. But this is definitely a learning opportunity for those young kids, and that's what the experience is all about. It's learning how to be in production agriculture, and that's
Mhm.
what you have to take sometimes.
And being proud of what you do too,
Yeah,
not just farming because, well, it makes you money, or even just because it produces food one way or the other, but trying to do a great job of it,
right.
right? And
Yes.
that's what I see when
Putting
I,
a good quality product out
yeah,
there on the market. I mean, that's what I've always preached, is that kids need to realize that, and it needs to be ingrained in their programs that, you're not trying to show an animal with the longest hair. You're trying to show something that somebody can eat and enjoy, and it needs to have all the qualities all around. It's really important.
there's so much history to that too. And
Yeah.
it's such a brutal year this year because, again, most of us are going to think about all the entertainment opportunities that are missed, and I love the entertainment value of a fair, but what you're talking about here is the educational value.
Hmm.
And it has been such a tough year for education with schools and how to keep kids occupied and plugged into
Right.
stuff. And this is another one of those things
Hmm.
that has gone away this year. What are you hearing from some of those kids, those families, the farm families that normally show that kind of stuff? Are they pretty heartbroken?
Yeah, it's something that the whole community looks forward to every year. It's the fair in any community is when the whole community gets to come together and celebrate not just agriculture, but being a community and
Mm.
showcasing even through local entertainment and stuff what the kids are doing in school. Special dance groups, like all of those things. Like everyone gets to showcase their stuff at the annual fair, and so people are losing all over in different ways. And I think people are just sad that we can't come together and be together during that time. It's such a tradition, and it used to always be the thing that it was the fun thing to get off the farm and ranch
Yeah.
and do. And that was what traditionally it was all about too. And so
Yeah.
it's definitely been sad for everyone. And our hearts are right there with them.
How hard was it to make that call? Because I know, well, when a lot of these things were canceled, and it's been some time ago now, a lot of stuff was even more up in the air than it is now.
Right. And I
And there
know
was politics involved and all kinds of crazy
from
stuff.
all of the people I've talked to on all these events and fairs and rodeos across the country, it's just they have exhausted all options and tried almost everything they can to try to figure out how to put it on. And it just comes down to there's no safe way to do it, or the authority isn't there. And it adds absolutely one of the hardest decisions to make. And um, I'm glad to see a few fairs have been lucky to been able to put on an event, and everything they had to go through in their region to be able to put a safe event on. That's great that they got to do that, but I know in some areas it's just not possible.
What was that like? when the announcement was made? What did that feel like to, this is your year. Yeah, you do events year round, but this is the big showcase.
Yeah.
To have that canceled.
It was a
Oof.
heart sinker. Yeah. It was just like, you just kind of, and I guess our decision here it was postponed long enough where we thought we would still have a chance. And so our hopes were up for a long time. And so it made us sink back even a little bit further when it finally came to the point when the last few mandates came out for Washington State. It was just like,
Mm.
okay. But you feel so helpless too because there is really nothing you can do. It's just, all right, now we got to change our mindset. What's the best thing we can do to move forward? And how do we get these kids to still be able to sell their animal and showcase what they've been raising all year long? And so, even though we took a minute to be sad, but then Mindshift focused and we're focused on planning this virtual fair that we're hosting here in a few weeks. And so it just has to be quick. You got to be ready for change and make it happen. So.
Yeah, it seems like everything else in life is happening on Zoom now. So I guess you have to figure out how to do a fair on Zoom, right?
Something like that, yeah.
A Zoom fair. Obviously, it's going to be more than that, I know, but
Yeah.
crazy.
We'll see how it all turns out.
What about the other organizations that you're involved with? I know you're involved with the Washington Cattlewomen, right?
Correct. I am currently the president. I've been president since 2017, and I'm in my second term now. That'll end in 2021. I joined the Cattlewomen in 2015 up here for Washington. I've had absolute blast. The ladies up here that are members are fantastic, and we have so much fun going around doing beef promotion events and working with our state beef commission and the Washington Cattlemen's. There's so many great things we get to do, and always looking for new ways we can connect with consumers and meet them and show them our face and say, hey, yeah, we're raising the beef you want to put on your plate, or maybe you don't want to put on your plate, but we'll let you know this is who we are anyway, and there's a lot of that. And we try to immerse ourselves in all kinds of communities and do different things just to get the word out there about beef and that women are highly involved just as much as the men.
Yeah, I think that's a stereotype
Yeah.
that a lot of people, it's interesting, people might criticize that, but if they do, it's probably coming from a place of not being aware that it's those, beef operations are family operations.
That's right.
Like, is there any I'm trying to think, any in this state that's not a family operation one way or the other?
Yeah.
And it's, man, woman, and child, everybody in the family who's available, and,
It's everybody. And the women aren't just cooking the food for the brandings anymore. I mean, they are in it or running the show now. And so there's a good mix, and the stereotypes are being broken. But it's all about all of everyone working together. So that's been fun. And then I've also been a part of the Washington Young Farmers and Ranchers Committee through the State Farm Bureau. I've been county representatives for quite a few years, first in Yakima, now for Kady. And I've been the vice chair of the Young Farmers and Ranchers State Committee for 2 years now. So that's been a really fun group. I get to work with and dabble in all kinds of industries, working and with people my age. And it's just so great to connect and talk about issues that, us as young people want to work on so that to make sure our operations or future operations are going to be there for us. And so that's where Farm Bureau plays a really important role, I feel like.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of value there. And, but just being involved overall in Farm Bureau, I've been learning a lot, and there's so much more to learn as far as like the policy side and different things like that. For Kady County, I just recently was appointed to their county farm bureau board, and they graciously made me policy chair. So now I'm really starting. I'm going to get to learn because I'm going to be the one representing us for that in our county for that.
Explain policy, like what kind of policies? What are we talking about?
So the Farm Bureau, we, as a state, every year we come together and review. We have a policy book, and that's where we stand on all agricultural policies. That when we go to Olympia or asking legislators for things or trying to persuade them on bills that are coming up. That's our policy book we follow, that's where we stand. And that guides the State Farm Bureau staff and all of the counties on how we're doing that. But every year we get the chance to amend and revise and add. And so it's a huge process, but it keeps the communication going and helps us adapt as things change and how we see the industry moving. And so I've only been involved in it recently, but so far it's a fun process and I'm learning a lot from it.
Back to stereotypes, just thinking about this. Like, again, the stereotype is the farmer or the rancher is usually an older man. You're a younger woman.
Mm-hmm.
What's that like being in that world? Do you come up against that sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. Even in this industry, I think that, it's there's a little bit on both sides that I can see that I'm kind of involved in. But overall, I also see a lot of support. At least, most of the older generation are starting to understand, and most of them actually get it. There's only a few that maybe aren't quite with the times or don't see all of the positives that can come out of the newer generations, maybe. But it's actually really encouraging to see. I mean, for an example, just working with not necessarily older men, but some older women, cattle women the groups tend to be mostly older women because a lot of the younger women are too busy and raising families and they're not really immersing themselves in volunteer activities. But, these women in the cattle women are just outstanding. And right away they accepted me and there was like no stereotypes about age or anything. I mean, it was just awesome. And then they put me as their president after only being there 2 years. And I'm like, are you sure? But they're so sweet. And so I know that stereotype overall and getting to work with like the Cattlemen's Association, it's people realize the stereotype isn't valid anymore, I guess. So it's good. It's good to see.
So where do you come from? You mentioned back home in California. What was that? What you grew up in the farming ranching world?
Yeah, so I grew up on a beef cattle and hay ranch right along the California-Oregon border in the Klamath Basin, just on the California side of the border. A little town called Doris, California is where I went to high school. My family's been ranching in that valley since my grandfather was 17, and but there's 6 generations of my family have been cattle ranching. I'm the 6th actually, so I'm very proud of that, and I do want to see a 7th come, and someday. I think that's really awesome. But yeah, little tiny town. I graduated with a class of 29, and so I come from a really small background, but there's tons of farming and ranching back home, and so that's where my heart lies for sure, is cattle ranching and that way of life. And I call mom and dad almost every day and ask them what's happening on the ranch and try to keep tabs on them, and just don't want to get too disconnected while I'm working on some other career goals.
So what's ranching life like then? Like what did you grow up doing every day on and around the ranch and farm?
Oh man, so many things. Other than caring for the animals, but we learned how to run hay equipment too and all of that. But my favorite stuff was, getting to go to brandings and go to grandpa's brandings and all those kinds of things. Cattle drives they're still a thing. And those were some of my favorite days, and just going and riding the range ground. We lease a lot of range ground for our cattle. Being in a high desert climate, you need a lot of acres to cover, and so a lot of riding. And I still, have horses, and riding is still heavily involved in my life today. And also, but feeding. I have pictures of me on a feed truck when I was like 3 years old with my dad feeding cows, and some of those are my favorite like childhood pictures. And but there's like a whole side of it that I'm now trying to learn that maybe I didn't take advantage of more when I was younger, and that was the paperwork side of it. And my mom's always done such a good job, and she just puts nose to the grindstone, and that's it's always going out and doing the work when you're younger. But some of my teenage years. I probably wish I could have learned a little bit more from her on that side at the time, but it's you keep busy, that's for sure. And then,
Yeah.
when you start getting involved in 4-H and then all spring and summer you're raising your own livestock on top of it and all of that, and when you got bummer calves that don't we lose some moms or whatnot, and so me and my sister were always in charge of raising the bottle babies and feeding them every day, and so all the critters, it was fun.
Some people, there's controversy, of course, as I'm sure you're well aware, around beef and raising animals, any sort of animal agriculture for some people. But you talk about things like cattle drives and branding and stuff. Some people who aren't familiar with how it works say, well, that's cruel, or why do you have to do that? What's your response to that kind of stuff? Because I know a lot of people are really curious, like, what is that? Is that kind of stuff necessary? Is it bad? Is it good? And they're not sure what to feel about it.
And it's understandable because when you don't have that background and you see that, I can understand where the concerns will lie. But if it's done right and properly, then it's definitely the best for the animal in the long run. It's just like anything, giving vaccinations or anything like that. Most people, we vaccinate ourselves, we vaccinate our kids, we do things for the health of them in the long run. And what we really try to do is make the stressful time as a short of period of possible and as easy on them, um, without causing any pain or anything like that. There is some, when during brandings, yeah, there's some short-term stuff, but it's very quick, and then they're off and eating, and back with their mother immediately. So, yeah, it does look bad in some cases, but really, it's done the best way possible in most cases. And there's a new program called Beef Quality Assurance. That's a national program, and like 80%, I think, of ranchers have gone through that program or have completed the certification. And that goes through, how to properly vaccinate, proper vaccination areas, and anything as far as handling animals and keeping them as low stress as possible, in any situation of moving them or anything like that. And, cattle, you just gotta, for me, it's about reading their body and their language, and every cow is different. And, you gotta be ready. But also, they're tough animals. They are built for different climates and eras, and like they can outstand a lot more than what people think, and they're a lot bigger and stronger than
Yeah.
than us humans. And so it's there's a lot of cows can be really dangerous, but really it's about finding that working relationship and really working on your stockmanship. I think it's been a big push of my parents with us growing up, and I can continue to see it growing in the industry today, which is amazing.
So
So,
you think a lot of the beef that's produced in this country is produced with those kind of values that you were
yes.
raised with?
Yes. I mean, I being involved, especially with the cattle women and going nationally and being involved with American National Cattle Women as well, and getting just to see how people are all across the country and the programs that are happening and seeing the stats. These cattle are transitioning, and they're just so much better off than they were 30 years ago. The advancements the industry has made are just, I'm blown away at how in a short amount of time on all levels we can become better, and that we're still working on getting better, and finding new ways. We push ourselves. We don't need regulation to push us, because the things we do and keeping the animals low stress and handling well and all of that all adds to the productivity and product that we put, and the better product we have, the more profitable. So it's very advantageous for ranchers to put those types of programs into place, or those types, have those skills. They'll see it on their bottom line.
How can people know if they can trust the beef that they're buying at the store, or that they're getting at a restaurant that they're eating? Is there a way to know? Is it what's because people are more and more concerned about, we want to make sure the food that we're consuming is healthy and is ethical.
Yes. I know that no product that's unhealthy, at least, is going to be put on the shelf ever. It's not everything you're going to be able to purchase and buy is going to be completely safe for you to eat. But as far as if you really
in the meat
in the meat
more,
case,
yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say I saw some stuff at the gas station the other day in a package, and I wasn't so sure it was safe.
Maybe not gas station stuff. Yeah.
Like kratom pills or something. I'm like, that's legal? I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh man. So, but as far as if you really want to know where your meat is coming from, I highly suggest, finding a local source, whether it be even regional or anything like that, and there's so many ranchers and farmers transitioning to being able to sell value added and on a local market rather than through the large conventional chain through the grocery stores. And so that's great because then you get to know the person or farm ranch that's raising your food. And but overall, from what I've seen from the reports that I've heard given at some of these conventions, a lot of that conventional stuff that is being raised and put into the grocery stores is becoming better and better and better raised. Like the beef quality assurance program has ways to actually test and has markers that show how that animal product has been affected. So, and if it's really bad or something is wrong with it, you will not see it and it won't be sold to you. So if something devastating was to happen to the animal or the carcass.
What do you see yourself doing in 5, 10, 20 years, whatever the timeline is for you? Like, it sounds like you eventually see yourself back as a part of the family ranch in California. What do you want that to look like?
Well, from recent conversations and transition planning with my family, the ranch transition can happen as early as probably in another decade, to 15 years. But I've always had the mindset you just got to kind of see where things are when it comes along. It's great to have plans, but don't plan on them too hard because I'm sure someone up above would change that plan if you planned it. If you were dead set on it, it would get changed for you.
Yeah.
That's happened a couple times to me. So,
yeah.
But I see myself definitely in the fair industry, and even when I go back to the family ranch, luckily there's some amazing fairs back home too, and in some way I would find out how to be involved in the fair industry still because the value is there, on so many levels. There's so many positions you can have, whether you're fair staff and management or a fair board director or just a volunteer superintendent, 4-H leader. There's so many ways you can contribute to the fair industry and make a huge impact. So that's always going to be there, I feel. Like I'm always going to have the two industries immersed. Even if they flip-flop which one is the daily priority, they're both very important to me.
And I'm realizing I forgot to ask you earlier, like, talk about your educational background too. You talked about going to high school, class of what did you say, like
29?
29.
Yeah, and 6 of those were foreign exchange students. So
tiny little school. But what'd you do after high school?
So I actually went to the State University of New York at Cobleskill College of Agriculture and Technology. It's a little bit of a mouthful, but I went there because I had a passion to also play college sports. And so I was looking at D2 and D3 schools across the country, and there were some good ag schools. I went back and visited in New York, and it turned out that their agricultural business program was actually really, really good and was sought out from ag kids all over the Northeast. That's their big powerhouse ag school back there. Even though it's a smaller school compared to some of our ag schools out here in the West, the ag program is about the same as the ag programs here in the West, just a smaller school for the rest of the degrees. And so, I found that really interesting. And lucky for me, that school wanted me to play 2 sports for them instead of just one.
I was going to ask, like, you were talking about D2 and D3 sports. Well, what sport? What's your thing?
So I got to play volleyball and basketball for SUNY Cobleskill.
What's
Go
your
Tigers.
nice? What
Yeah.
what was what's your number one? Like if you were just going to do one, what was it going to be?
That's what everyone asked me, and I couldn't decide. I was like, I don't know. I have to wait for the best opportunity. Like, if I choose one, then I'll end up having to play the other. It was just like
Yeah. So you love
one
them
of those
both.
things. I love them both. I was so blessed to be able to get to play both and have a awesome experience in college getting my agricultural business degree. And it was just like the three legs of the stool were there, and that is where I sat and landed. And it was such an amazing experience because I was, of course, the only like kid from California almost in the entire college, and the only kid from California in the ag program. And so all of my college classes, I got so much engagement because my professors and other students would be asking me my perspective being a California kid and
Mm,
agriculture being so huge in California and all over the West Coast. I got to be a huge part of those conversations, which
right.
just enhanced the learning that much more. And so that was a ton of fun. And I'm glad that I got to experience another side of the country too and learn how different agriculture is, because that just helped me have a better understanding overall. So
So what positions did you play?
in basketball, I was a center, and volleyball, I was an outside my freshman year and then a middle for the remaining years. So, which is always the positions I were in high school as
Yeah.
well. So, yeah.
You still play much?
Since I've moved to Ellensburg, when I was in Yakima, I used to play volleyball in an adult league all the time, and that was a lot of fun. And I continue to play in Spokane's Hoop Fest, largest 3-on-3 in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's a lot of fun. I was really sad it was canceled this year, but I do try to keep playing, and so hopefully I will find some more time to keep going, and hopefully once all this COVID's over and sports can start again, I'll be looking forward to that. But I'm also learning new hobbies because I'm learning how to breakaway rope, and so I'm
Mm.
trying a new sport, and so that's been a lot of fun too. And something as I age, I'll have to learn how to do something different. My body can already feel all those years of hitting the gym floor in basketball or
Yeah.
something like that. So yeah,
And I wasn't a great sports player, but I do think about some of the sports stuff that I dabbled in high school. I wasn't good enough to play after high school, but some of the things I did, realizing how bad it would hurt now if I did those same things, took those same hits that I took in football or
oh yeah,
oh man, it's crazy to think that doesn't has it been that many years? Am I really getting that old?
yeah.
I can't be that old
I
yet.
just hit that stage where I'm like, oh, that long ago? I've just started realizing that like the last year. Yeah. It's not fun.
So what's your next move gonna be? You're here at the, do you want to do this for quite a while yet, or you said it
Yeah.
could be like a decade or more before you want
I'm,
to take over the ranch then and kind of be head honcho and take it over from your parents? What about siblings? Do you have siblings
yeah.
that are
Yeah. And
kind of
actually,
angling for the job
yeah,
too?
I just had a conversation with my sister last night on the phone, and we were already talking about stuff, and we're both looking forward to working together. We will have joint ownership of the family ranch, and
Mm.
I know both of us have the same passion. And even if we spent our entire childhood fighting like no other, we're in a place now in our adulthood where like, okay, there's a lot of pride here, and we both have the same goals, and yeah, it'll be a joint effort, but I'm looking forward to it. So we'll
so
see how
so
the timeline
you
works
won't
out.
fight at all.
Oh, we'll probably fight. There will probably be some business decisions that don't line up, but that's typical, and that's
Yeah.
that's how family operations are. I guess it's a whole nother ball game. It's a lot different than other businesses, that's for sure. But
Yeah,
you
how
know,
do you separate that? Because you still want to be family and hopefully friends.
I
But
don't
if you're
think,
working
yeah,
together at the same time
I don't think there's
and
an answer for it because what have wives and husbands done for all these
yeah,
years? I mean, they still struggle. They
yeah,
haven't been able to figure it out. They're a lot of them stay together, but they figure out that much, but it
yeah,
doesn't stop them from fighting about the farm and ranch stuff.
that is true.
It's sometimes you don't agree, and it's a challenge to separate your personal and business life when your personal and business life are your life. Like
Yeah.
they're ingrained together. There's no separation. Um, but that's again probably leads back to why farmers and ranchers are so passionate and love their lifestyle at the same time, because you get to do it with your family too, and it's what you love and you can do it together. In a lot of other businesses, it's you don't get the entire family to get to work with you. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's unique. It's
Yeah.
double-edged sword.
Yeah. Totally true.
Yeah.
And that's been my experience growing up on a family farm as well. There's amazing things about it, and there's really hard things about the interpersonal stuff and dealing with conflict. Even though if you grow up doing it, you
Mhm.
do, I think, unless you really get into some bad habits, you learn how to do that along the way.
Yeah, and yeah, like my sister and I, we went to different ag schools, and we have different teachings and all of that, and but I think there's things that I know that could benefit, and there's things that she knows that could benefit. If we bring those together, I think the strengths we have will outweigh a lot of the, things that we might have to work through. But that'll happen at any place of business. It's just working
Yeah.
through those and handling the conflict resolution correctly, which when it's family, sometimes it's not that easy, but it'll be good.
I've been
So
there.
yeah,
I know.
yeah.
Does that make you nervous at all? I know when I've thought, and I'm not really in a position to do it right now, but thought about like taking on the family, taking over, continuing on the family farm. It's like I I've seen a lot or most of it, but it freaks me out to think, what if that's all that responsibility's on my shoulders? Could
Oh
I
yeah.
do it?
Oh yeah. No, it's definitely something. If you start thinking about it too much, you do get nervous, and that's one reason probably why I call my parents every day, and that probably drives them absolutely crazy. But I'm like, I don't want to like slip up and learn a month later you guys are doing something, that I had no idea, and like how am I going to prepare for that? And
Yeah.
so it's been important for me to know the business plans moving forward. And they get really busy and just getting everything done, because it is a busy life. You have a huge to-do list every day, and so then you have your this is late to-do list. And so trying to pull that information and stay up to date is difficult, or to try to learn. And so my hope is that I will have the opportunity when we're ready to place a transition, that there will actually be, a time where we can learn and um, in person and really
Yeah.
get a handle on things. And so we'll see. We never know what the plan is, from the other wonders of the world, but we just gotta be prepared and have the best plan that we can.
What's been over your years of either being on the farm when you were, or still connected to it on the ranch, away from the ranch? What's been the most challenging part keeping that whole thing going? I mean, for your parents, for yourself, you talk about it being tough, but what's it really like when it gets difficult?
I think for me is just like understanding all of the processes, as far as what has to be done in the background, not necessarily like I think, it's easy to probably pick up working in the ranch because that's what I grew up doing, but learning all the stuff that goes I know how to run a business, but learning all the intricacies that are specific to our ranch and all of the needs and paperwork, because the rules in agriculture are so different than like what I'm handling
Mm,
here now. Yeah, there's basic elements, but um, just the overload of different things that you have to know, and filling out the right, paperwork, permits, whatever it is, taxes, all that stuff. That's what I'm probably most nervous about, because I can't learn that without doing it, and it's my mom holds all of that information, and so it's like, um, how do you slow her down to try to ask her understand? She's amazing at record keeping and bookkeeping, and that's the thing. It's just so detailed, and so trying and hopefully with the records there, I can learn quickly. But it's learning how to do it right and keep it moving without making a mistake. I think the toughest thing for me, the scariest thought is probably making a big mistake that costs the ranch a big dollar hit, because that does happen in transitions too.
Mm.
So um, we'll we'll just gotta hope for the best and work towards
Yeah.
that. But all those stressors are there, I guess. I don't I The toughest thing for me, like right now, is when there's so much going on and I'm so far away and I can't just go and help during the weekend or something like
Yeah.
that. There's a million things going wrong every week, and just how it is. That's normal. But that I'm not there, and not there not just to help, but just to support my parents, like emotionally, as and just know that they have us there and that we're going to be there. And my sister's same thing. She lives south, and so it's hard for both of us. But we go home and try to visit when we can, and
Yeah.
catch up. But being away from family is really hard for a lot of reasons. So
Well, the whole idea of me having conversations like we're having here is to kind of reconnect people with the people who are growing the food that we're all eating and buying in the store. What would you say? What's your message to people who aren't really connected with farming? Like, what do they need to know to kind of bring this whole thing back together?
yeah.
Bring the different communities back together in sort of a mutual awareness and appreciation in our food system.
Yeah. I would say is don't be afraid to reach out and learn about, people, farmers and ranchers maybe in your area where you could start. The information's out there, and the industry is not putting out false information to, like, the production side of the industry is really pretty trustworthy, and we want to give you the right information and show you how we do things and why we do things. And we want to make that connection too, and we want you to feel comfortable, because we're eating and the same food that we're raising, that we're trying to serve to you too. And we're definitely not out there. Our goal is not to harm anyone. We want to do what's best for the people of the world, and care for our animals along the way, and give them the best quality life that they can have, until they fulfill their purpose. And that's what it's all about.
Very cool stuff, and coming from a really cool story. I don't know. To me, someone saying that means so much more when it's from someone like you, you've lived it, you've seen it, and not only have you been around it, but now you advocate for it as a professional. So that's pretty powerful for
Yeah.
someone like yourself to say.
And there's so many avenues now on Facebook. Like, there's so many amazing advocates out there that I look up to, that are sharing stuff all the time all over Facebook. And really, even if you're not connecting face to face with people in person or local people, research and try to find advocates online, because they're sharing real stories too, and they're readily available to talk to you about issues, and they have amazing answers that'll hopefully completely give you a better understanding of what you're concerned about. And it's just amazing what they do and what they're able to promote on what they're doing in their everyday lives. And it's hard to have the time to do all of the farming and ranching and then get on social media and do all of that too. So our older generations have a terrible time doing it, because it's new and they're used to what they're doing. But the
Yeah.
younger generations and are stepping up, and they're really good at it. So don't be afraid to find them and talk to them, even through Facebook. That's what they want to do. We want to talk.
Yeah, I think our generation in particular is really bad at lying.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, we're open books. I think in a lot of ways, we're used to being out there. We
Yeah.
have had social media as a part of our lives for quite a while now,
Mhm.
and we value authenticity.
And we want to be understood, and we want to share what we're doing because we think it's really cool, and we want you to think it's cool too. and know that it's all for the betterment of everyone.
Well, I think what you're doing is cool.
Thanks.
So, and I really appreciate you doing the podcast.
Yes, so thank you for having me. This has been a lot of fun.